Room every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN. Each weekend in the locker room, you will get passionate sports talk from a fan's perspective, along with interviews with some of the biggest names in sports. That's every Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to noon in the locker room with me, Billy Schwein, on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, because nothing could be finer than talking sports with a Schweiner.
Sports is what we do.
You're in your car, you're in your house, you're wherever you are. You're a sports fan.
97.3 ESPN.
Because if you weren't a sports fan, you wouldn't be listening.
WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Friday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. I am Josh Hennig, hanging out with you. Sixers back on the court finally tomorrow. I mean, I feel like it's been like 2 years since the Sixers team actually played a game. Actually, probably been 2 weeks, considering the fact that they didn't play the last two games, aside from the G League out there. So we will break down the Sixers' road to victory. Bryan Toporek from the NBA podcast, contributor for Liberty Ballers and Forbes Sports, joins me coming up in less than 20 minutes here on 97.3 ESPN. As always, you can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. That is the text board, your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And before we dive headlong into the Sixers, I did want to, kind of go a little bit big picture, because I am very well aware that for a lot of you out there, whether you're listening in your car on 97.3 ESPN FM, whether you're somebody who is jumping on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, however you're listening to the show, we appreciate you tuning in and joining the conversation. But I know for many of you, you don't look at this Sixers team the way that you did and felt about the Eagles and Phillies runs. So I want to take some time today and try to paint a clearer picture of what is really going on with this team. Because when you look at the larger picture, everyone agrees, or at least everyone of rational mind agrees, that there are three teams in the Eastern Conference and everybody else can kick rocks, basically. It's the Bucks, it's the Celtics, it's the Sixers, whatever order you want to put them in. That in and of itself means that the 76ers have a chance to win the Eastern Conference. Out west, it's a little more complicated. Nobody believes in the Nuggets. Everyone has questions about the Grizzlies and their front line. The Kings are young, and they've been to the postseason as a franchise since the mid-2000s. Basically, it's been, I believe, 17 years, or I have to double check what the number is, but I know they just broke their postseason drought. The Warriors, is Wiggins going to come back and be able to make an impact? The Lakers, they got LeBron, so you never know. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they played tonight, and who knows if they're even going to make it in, for goodness sake. So you go up and down the Western Conference. There's no real favorite. But in the Eastern Conference, it's three guys. It's three teams, and that's it. Those three guys are Giannis, Embiid, and Tatum. And those three teams are the beasts of the East. So that in and of itself means that the 76ers have a chance. Now, you may say they only have a 15% or a 25% chance, but a chance is a chance. If you would have told me at the beginning of the Phillies playoff run that they would get to the World Series, I would have looked at you sideways and been like, really? You guys are getting past the Braves and the Padres? But they did. If you would have told me last August that the Eagles would be in a position to win the Super Bowl at halftime, I would have looked at you sideways and said, look, I mean, I like Jalen Hurts, but not that much. But guess what? That's exactly where the Eagles were. So who are we to say that the 76ers can't win the Eastern Conference? Now, the odds might not be high, but let's break down the Eastern Conference playoff field. When you look at who the Sixers play in the first round, it's the best opponent possible. It's the only team in the Eastern Conference that doesn't have a dude. And for those who are not unfamiliar with Joshisms, what I mean by a dude is a guy that can drop 40 on any night and that can win you a game almost by himself. That guy doesn't exist on the Nets. They have some really nice players. Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges is budding into a good to very good player, but the Nets don't have a guy that scares you. The Bucks got Giannis. The Heat, they got Jimmy Butler. The Knicks, I think Jalen Brunson is getting into that range. He's very, very close. I think he's further along than Mikal Bridges is to be in that category. He's had some monster games this year. The Cavs, they got Donovan Mitchell. The Celtics, we know Jason Tatum. Trae Young is on the Hawks. Nets all got that guy. So you should win this series in about 5 games maximum. If they go 6 games, I'm probably going to have to talk some people off a bridge because it'll be ugly. So if you beat the Nets, the assumption is that you would face Boston in the second round unless Atlanta pulls off one of the biggest upsets in postseason history. When I mean biggest upsets, I'm talking about Warriors over the Mavs, 15 years ago. 8 seed, 1 seed, insurmountable. This Hawks team is so incredibly inconsistent. It's amazing that they even got into the postseason as a 7 seed. Boston, for most of the year, was considered the best team in the Eastern Conference before they faltered later in the season. So the likelihood is that you're facing Boston if you're Philadelphia. Now, I understand in the regular season, it's basically been a 500 record for the Sixers against Boston since Doc Rivers came to Philadelphia. But there's something about the Sixers and the Celtics history that you have to throw out the window. And that is, if the version of Joel Embiid shows up in the postseason that has played the way he has this year, if the James Harden that led the NBA in assists shows up in the postseason this year, if this Sixers team is as good as people think it is, then the Boston series should go 7 games. Because first of all, nobody on Boston is stopping Joel Embiid. Can we all at least agree on that? Al Horford, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, Joel Embiid could go bully ball on all those guys. The second thing to keep in mind is, as I've told you guys in the past, there's one stat that delineates the Sixers' success and failure. It's turnovers. In the games they lose, they average about 14 turnovers a game. In the games they win, they average about 10 turnovers a game. That 4 turnover difference makes a big difference in the postseason. If there's anything that could doom or lift the Sixers to success, it is one thing. And that is the turnovers. Boston is a team that has really good stats this year defensively. They are arguably one of the best defensive teams in the entire league. Their 111 points per game allowed is one of the best in the NBA. And there's a ton of other metrics that show that when Boston wants to play defense, they are exceptional. The problem is that Boston is a team that when they go cold And when they're not playing their best basketball, it gets ugly. And we've seen that this year for them. So really, the Sixers getting to the Eastern Conference Finals is less about their opponents than it is about them. And I think if the Sixers show up, play the brand of basketball they should, and that they can, they will get there. I'm just keeping it real with you guys. I don't think that we understand or appreciate enough that this team in Philadelphia is probably the best shot you're going to have to win a championship for a while. Look, I'm not saying that something crazy can't happen in the offseason. Some disgruntled superstar went out of town. Joel Embiid convinces somebody to come to Philadelphia. James Harden leaves. You replace it with somebody else. I'm not saying any of those things can't happen. But I'm existing in the here and now. And the here and now is this Sixers championship run is on the players. It's not on Doc. It's not on anybody else. In my opinion, if the Sixers don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, it's the players' fault. Because at some point, we have to hold players accountable for their success and failings on the court. And if you want to be the person who uses championship rings as a measurement of a player's greatness and success, then I will not accept the person who blames Doc Rivers if this team doesn't get out of the second round. At some point, Embiid, Harden, Maxey, you brought in PJ Tucker for a reason, right? All these guys have to step up. D'Anthony Melton's been one of the best perimeter two-way players in the league this year. He has to step up. Maxey, he's got to make those threes when you absolutely need it. Tobias Harris, he's got to be a double-double guy consistently. If these guys show up, they win. If they don't show up, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who the coach is. Dig up Red Auerbach out of the ground. He ain't fixing this problem. Because at some point, we have to hold the players responsible. Joel Embiid's probably going to be the league MVP. 2 straight years, he's won the scoring title. James Harden is going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's a former league MVP. He led the league in assists this year. If Allen Iverson can carry the band of misfit toys to the NBA Finals, what excuse does Joel Embiid and James Harden have? And don't tell me that this year's playoff race is so much harder, because it's not. You go back to that Sixers run, and you will realize that those were some really good teams they beat. They went 7 games with the Raptors, 7 games with the Bucks. That Raptors team had Vince Carter. That Bucks team had what they considered a big 3 at the time of Ray Allen, Glenn Robinson, former Sixer at one point, by the way, Glenn Robinson. And they also had Sam Cassell. You know, the same Sam Cassell that's on the bench for Sixers now, the same Sam Cassell that everybody lauds because he won an NBA championship in his career. Yeah, that guy. Allen Iverson and a bunch of just guys, a regular average NBA players, got past 2 really good teams, got to the NBA Finals, and won 1 game against one of the biggest dynasties in the NBA since the Jordan Bulls broke up. What's the excuse if this Sixers team doesn't do what Allen Iverson's team did? This is the most wins the Sixers have had in a regular season since the Iverson Sixers. And in Sixers history, there's only a handful of guys who win MVPs. And Allen Iverson's one of them. And if Joel Embiid and James Harden hope to be looked at in a certain category for their careers, this is put up or shut up time. Because I'm telling you right now, Tyrese Maxey is better than Aaron McKee was in 2001. James Harden is better than every player not named Allen Iverson on that 2001 team. You put Embiid and Iverson on a team together, they might beat those Lakers in 2001. That's how poor that Sixers team was back then. Excuses time is done. It's not Doc Rivers. It's the players. Stop turning the ball over. Stop being idiots. Play smart. You can make a deep run. We'll get to your message a little bit later this hour. 609-403-0973 is the text word. You also can DM the show through 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Coming up next, Bryan Toporek, the co-host of the NBA podcast, contributor for Liberty Ballers and Forbes Sports NBA writer, will join me next to break down the entire NBA playoff field. Your home for the NBA playoffs is right here on 97.3 ESPN FM.
It's Sixers playoff basketball tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Here's Joel with it, turning on Claxton, goes beyond the arc, a fadeaway three, and he made it! It draws oohs and ahs from the crowd.
It's Sixers Nets, Game 1, tomorrow. Coverage begins at 1 p.m. It's Sixers playoff basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
Matt Platt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot. Get out of that old car, truck, or SUV and into a brand new Nissan. The all-new Matt Platt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township, or visit us online, mattplattnissan.com.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
It's Spring Black Friday at the Home Depot, which means it's time to get your outdoor spaces ready so you can enjoy more this season. Right now, you can get the Stylewell Park Point 4-piece patio set at a new lower price of $399. With its stain-resistant cushions and modern relaxed styling, it's the perfect centerpiece for your porch, deck, or patio, whether you're looking for sunny lounging or evening gathering. Hurry into the Home Depot to get the Stylewell Park Point patio set at a new lower price, just $399. Shop Spring Black Friday savings at the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Did you know that over 40 years ago, John Jenkins Sr. invented the heated seat that football players sit on? Yes, the Jenkins family created a way for football players to weather the extreme cold on frigid game days. Find out why homeowners and business owners count on Jenkins for the quality, service, and reliability you get from a 3-generation family-run company for plumbing, drain cleaning, and leak repairs. For gas furnace, boiler, or hot water heater replacements, call Jenkins at 609-641-6440 and ask about zero-interest financing. Online at jenkinsandsons.com.
With GMF financing, qualified buyers excludes Corvette.
Ever ask yourself why most people come to Bennett Chevrolet? It's simple. Bennett's selling new Chevys at true GM supplier employee prices. You pay what they pay, not a penny more. Plus, you keep all the rebates. Right now, that's up to $8,000. Now, some dealers are trying to do what we do. They may give you a discount, but then they try to keep some or all of the rebates. Nice try, but not really. Bennett gives you both the GM supplier employee price plus all the rebates. Right now, that's up to $8,000. And there's available 0% financing. Zero. Looking for used? Bennett will pay you a minimum $10,000 for any piece of you can drag to our lot towards any pre-owned in stock. That's at least $10,000. And we pay more, a lot more for good trades. And finally, our sales team is fantastic. Really, unlike other dealers, they're paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Come see the difference and find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and Bennett Chevy.
You're listening to Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
GameNight here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Thursday night. We'll get your text messages a little bit later this hour. Of course, your DMs from the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Sixers back in action tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon. I am not going to get out of this 1 o'clock. This 1 o'clock thing is throwing me off. My entire weekend is up in arms. Listen, Jalen McDaniels almost make he said he likes it. You know what? Players like it. Who am I to complain? You know what? I just got to suck it up and get over it. I'm used to games being at night, late afternoon. Who cares Sixers side, someone who I do care what they think is Bryan Toporek. He is the co-host of the NBA podcast, also Liberty Ballers contributor and Forbes Sports NBA writer, joining us right now on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Bryan, welcome back in. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Josh. I'm ready for the playoffs. Thanks as always for having me.
So let's get to the Sixers first, because that's the thing. Before you came on, I laid out that basically I'm at the point where I'm done with the Doc Rivers blame. At some point, Embiid led the NBA in scoring. James Harden led the league in assists. Almost everyone in the Sixers team is probably starting for the 2001 Sixers with Allen Iverson. But yet Allen Iverson drugged the band of misfit toys to the NBA Finals. So at some point, Embiid and Harden, if they play the way they did in the regular season, this team should make a deep playoff run. No?
I mean, yes and no. I think they have the misfortune of having to go against arguably the two best teams in the NBA just to get to the finals, and they're not going to have home court advantage in either series. So, I think there's a real argument that they're the third best team in the NBA, but they still might lose in the conference finals, which is just a virtue of the East being as strong as it is and the West being, kind of as muddled as it is.
Is it fair to say that the NBA title will be won by a team in the Eastern Conference and not the West?
I think, assuming health, yeah, I think that whichever team comes out of the East, whether it's Boston, Milwaukee, or Philly, I think it's going to be one of those three teams. With all due respect to Cleveland and the Knicks and everyone, I think it's one of those three. Regardless of who comes out of the West, I think the East team will be favored just by virtue of having beaten at least one of the other two, if not both. But, it all comes down to health, too. Like, Joel Embiid was fully healthy entering the playoffs last year, as far as I remember, or, as healthy as he's been, and then catches one stray elbow, and that's that. So it's a long 2 months. Like, it's something we have to remember, that injuries, unfortunately, do happen and often do shake up the title race. And, the Sixers have been on the wrong end of that a lot more than on the right end in recent years. Hopefully that this is the year where things actually break in their favor.
Is it a blessing or a curse to face the team that everyone wanted to see in the first round?
I think it's a blessing in some respect. Really, assuming that Boston does get past Atlanta, which I think is a fairly safe assumption to make, I think Brooklyn is going to be good preparation for a Boston series. Just a bunch of switchable wings. You have one marquee scorer in Mikal Bridges. Boston obviously has two in Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Brooklyn can't go double big like Boston can with Al Horford and Robert Williams, but Nick Claxton is also a switchable center, and it'll get them prepared for a 1-in, 4-out look, which, I think Boston would be running, especially whenever Williams is on the floor without Horford. So stylistically, I think they are, at least in some respects, similar. And, the Sixers, assuming they beat the Nets, if they beat the Nets, they won't have to completely switch gears. It's okay. We've already installed these things. These things worked. We can probably carry some, if not a lot of them, over to this next series.
See, I'm conflicted because I do understand what you're saying. There is value in seeing Bridges and Dinwiddie and guys like that on the floor. But to me, the Nets are the one team in the Eastern Conference that doesn't have what I call a dude. They don't have a guy that can just go off for 40 points. And you're sitting there with your head in your hands. I'm like, no, not tonight.
Mikal might be that dude, though. I think you might be selling Mikal Bridges short.
I don't think so. I think he's a really good player, but I can't put him in the same category. Even when I know he's probably 2 years from his prime at this point, but Tatum, Giannis, Jimmy Butler, Trae Young. Those guys, they scare you when they get on a roll. Even Brunson. When he gets on a roll, you're just like, oh no, here he goes, kind of thing.
I think Mikal, if he's not there yet, he's very close to it. He averaged almost 27 points per game after the trade to Brooklyn. He's had multiple.
Well, no one else is on the team, Bryan.
Yeah, it's true. But they do have some guy. Dinwiddie's going to get his, but yeah, Bridges is going to be the focal point. I think, if you're looking ahead to this series, if Bridges doesn't have a monster series, the Nets are completely drawing dead. Like they're already in a lot of trouble going into this thing, but Bridges has to have, that type of a series, that dude series. He has to be, if not the best player on the floor, which is going to be tough when you're going against the likely MVP, at least the second best player, which I think is within the range of possible outcomes.
If Bridges ends up being the second best player in the series, it's not going to be done in 5. I can promise you that. I mean,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, talent-wise, you could argue this should be a sweep because you're right. Even if you put Bridges in that tier, that's it for Brooklyn. They've got a bunch of nice role player type guys, and Claxton is an up-and-coming center, very, modern day big in terms of his defensive versatility. Joel Embiid's got 65 pounds on him, and their only other center is Day'Ron Sharpe. Like, they have no answer for Joel Embiid, or no good answer other than double team him a ton and just force some of the other guys to beat you. But I think the Sixers are going into this series knowing that's the strategy as well. So I think a lot of this series is going to come down to, does Embiid make the right play when he gets doubled? He can score through Claxton if he's getting doubled, or score through whoever is doubling him. So I think we'll see a lot of that still. But does he make the right play? Does he spray it out to teammates, and do those teammates knock down the open shots that he's generating by these double teams?
We'll get into more as the series goes on with Bryan Toporek here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. But I want to ask you some of the other games as well. Yeah. Eastern Conference tonight, Heat versus Bulls. I don't know what's more ridiculous, the fact that both 10 seeds won on Wednesday, or the fact that Miami looked completely uninterested in their game on Tuesday.
It was just such a weird performance from Miami, because everyone was picking them, and then they just got clobbered on the boards, which is just not, usually you associate Miami with this like tough, scrappy, gritty team. Like, they're the ones who are going to outwork you. And the Hawks have just been so dysfunctional all year. So for the Hawks to, suddenly turn this on, Clint Capella was just ridiculous in that game. I think it's a wake-up call for Miami. I think the big question for tonight's game is DeMar DeRozan's daughter going? And the reports are no. It sounds like she is in school and has her own game tonight. I think Casey Johnson, I believe he's at NBC Sports Chicago now, reported that earlier today. Yeah. So that is a big disadvantage for the Bulls, because you could argue she is the reason the Bulls won that game the other night.
Toronto's foul shooting was so bad. Bad.
I mean, I don't blame them, but at the same time, like, you guys are professional athletes. You're used to people doing this every single night. It's just really a testament to her that she broke through. They're screaming at the line, but like, she pierced through it. Good for her.
Yeah, she broke through the sound of silence out there. So the team that beat Miami was Atlanta. I mean, is Atlanta, did they have a chance at all against Boston? I feel like Atlanta is the most inconsistent team in this entire playoff field.
I mean, I don't want to say no chance, because, like, God forbid Tatum and Brown go down and all of a sudden it's a new series. But assuming everyone stays healthy, it's hard to see Atlanta's path. Maybe they take it to 5 or 6, but it's hard to see them winning 4 of 7. Boston just has, between Marcus Smart and Derek White, that is 48 minutes of elite point of attack defense. Like, Trae Young is the head of the snake there, but Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are going to be dealing with, the reigning defensive player of the year and a guy who very well could be an all defensive team this year in Derek White. So, I think a lot of the playoffs every year come down to personnel and specific matchups. And I think Boston is a really, really bad matchup personnel wise for Atlanta.
By the way, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but do you know, is there like a legitimate reason why the Sixers play Saturday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, but the Knicks and Cavs play Saturday, Tuesday, Friday?
I think they wanted to give Julius Randle more time to recover. The NBA did. The NBA hates the Sixers too. There's also that.
Is that what it is? They just hate the Sixers?
I think there's a real chance, yes.
Well, if the NBA hates the Sixers, does that mean Embiid does not win the MVP? I mean,
well, thankfully the media is the one who chose it. If it was Adam Silver, he would just give it to Giannis or Jokic probably.
I feel like Adam likes Giannis more than Jokic. If I had to
probably.
Put a finger, because I feel like Jokic symbolizes all of the isms that Adam talks about. How oh, we have players that come from nothing and they make themselves into something, and we're about family and community and giving back and blah blah. I feel like Giannis is like the poster child for that, whereas Jokic is just like, I'm from Europe and I'm 7 foot tall and I'm talented.
He does not care at all. He just wants to go and ride horses. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, Giannis is willing to sort of embrace being the face of the league, and Jokic is just absolutely not. I want no part of this. I just want to play basketball and go back to Serbia to my horse farm. That's it.
Yeah, and not play defense.
Right, right, exactly.
A couple more of these Eastern Conference games I want to get to with you, Bryan, here. We mentioned the Cavs and the Knicks. I mean, this is easily the most intriguing series of them all because of the fact that they're not just two closely, evenly matched teams, but I mean, you could argue that Donovan Mitchell playing the Knicks is some beautiful irony. Meanwhile, I mean, it is the Knicks. So, I mean, you have the contingent of people in the media who are hanging on for dear life, hoping the Knicks do anything someday.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly in the East, this is the best first round series. It's the only one I think is going to be relatively competitive. I feel like the top 3 seeds should, barring catastrophe, should cruise pretty easily. And this one, I think I'd be shocked if this one's over in 5. This feels like a 7-game series just on paper. It's 2 evenly matched teams. I think, how Julius Randle looks. I think Woj reported earlier today. I saw that he is expected to play tomorrow. He's coming back from an injury that kept him out for the last couple of weeks of the season. So, what percentage health he's at is going to be a big storyline against Cleveland's massive front court of Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. You brought up Mitchell. He and Brunson played in the playoffs, I believe, last year, and it was an electric series between those two guys. So it's going to be a really fun rematch there. We've got Emmanuel Quickly, possible 6th man of the year, Darius Garland, who is went from all-star to just completely underrated in the span of a year because Donovan Mitchell overshadowed him. So I think this one should be fun. I think it's going to be kind of a throwback series because both of these teams could really muck things up defensively. So I'm not expecting 140 to 135. I think this is going to be a low scoring slug it out series.
Brian Toporek says, take the under here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. He's the co-host of the NBA podcast, contributor for Liberty Ballers, and covers the NBA as well for Forbes Sports. Let's go to the Western Conference, start with the play-in games today. By the way, folks can hear the play-in games coming up at 7 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN FM. OKC, Minnesota. My gut says, Brian, that if Denver had their pick, they'd rather deal with Minnesota than OKC.
Yeah, I mean, OKC hasn't had anyone punch a teammate recently or break their hand punching a wall recently. So less dysfunction going on in OKC for sure. And I don't think you want to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the playoffs. I mean, that guy is ridiculous. Just proven 3-level scorer that Minnesota, Anthony Edwards hopefully is that guy, will be that guy someday. Not quite there yet. Struggled against the Lakers in that play-in game on Tuesday. Have we gotten word? I have not seen whether Gobert is expected to actually play tonight. I know he's been dealing with the back spasms. Was questionable at least coming in. And, Minnesota might be like, yeah, take your time. Just take as much time as you want to recover because, the fit between him and Towns was clunky for the early portion of the year. Towns gets hurt. They didn't play for 4 months. They haven't really had a lot of time to workshop that. So Towns had a lot more freedom offensively without Gobert on Tuesday night, at least. I think I'm leaning OKC in this game because I just really want Shai to go off, and we'll see. Former Sixer Isaiah Joe is gonna naturally haunt us all by like hitting 5 threes off the bench tonight. But OKC is just such a fun, like, they are what the process could have been had the NBA not intervened.
Could have been, should have been. All right, let's move on. Phoenix Clippers.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do with this series, because on one hand, I feel like the Suns, if everybody is like good to go, they could win that series in 5-6 games. But there's still a part of me that looks at the Clippers and says, this team could make life miserable for Kevin Durant in a series. What is your take on the 4-5 matchup in the West?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of Suns in 6, Suns in 7, and I might be underthinking it, because my initial reaction was like Suns in 5, I think. We just don't know. I mean, Paul George is such a wild card. Like, we don't know what his status is, if he's going to play all in this series. If
really quick. My favorite is them showing video footage of Paul George shooting baskets without a shirt on is evidence that he might come back. Like, I mean, have we not watched the NFL draft for years, seeing the underwear Olympics mean absolutely nothing?
Yeah, like, okay, he's taking standstill jumpers. Cool. That's
great.
Does not mean he's ready to play 40 minutes of high intensity playoff basketball. Like, the reporting at the time, at least, made it sound like he was unlikely to play in the first round when he got hurt initially. So, maybe the Suns in 6, Suns in 7 stuff is like factoring a mid-series return, in which case I think that would draw it out longer. But without Paul George, it is just hard to see how they're going to stifle both KD and Booker. I mean, yeah, Kawhi on KD is probably the single best individual matchup in the first round. It's probably that or Mitchell versus Brunson. But without Paul George, I just don't think they have enough to stop all of. The Suns are just going to rain from mid-range between Booker, KD, Chris Paul. DeAndre Ayton is going to get his inside, and Clippers have Zubac, who is good, underrated center, but not much beyond that. Like, I don't know if you can go small against Ayton, or if they try to. I think Phoenix is really going to have to make a concerted effort to feed him inside.
The 3-6 matchup is the Kings versus the Warriors. Obviously, there's a million storylines to this game, but the one I want to ask you about is, do people believe too much, not enough, or what is it with the Warriors? They feel like there are people who are like, Warriors to the NBA Finals. Other people are like, the end is near, the twilight is here. It's like there's no real in between, and I feel like the Kings are just like the sacrificial lamb for like a Warriors debate for 6 games.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to say, because obviously the Warriors have so much pedigree and experience that the Kings do not have. And it's just, how much do you believe in that versus, what they were on the road this year. They were terrible, and they are going to have to win at least one road game to win this series. I think they're certainly capable of it. And the Kings defense, I think, is giving people pause, because, the Kings had the best offense in the league, but their defense was toward the bottom. So, how do they slow down Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins is going to be back? How do they slow down all of those guys? But I think you can make the same argument, like, how do the Warriors slow down the Kings? Like, maybe this is going to be, I think, the polar opposite of Cleveland, New York. Like, this could just be a run and gun, like, first to 130, 140 wins every night.
That is true. The Kings play as much defense as you and I do right now, which is when I'm on the basketball court. I saved the best for last, and that is the enigma that is the Lakers versus the Memphis team that, we really just don't know, because aside from Jaren Jackson, there's nobody on the front line basically for Memphis. And it's like, is Ja Morant's head there? Like, is his heart and soul back in basketball, or is he still dealing with demons? And on the flip side, I mean, there's that LeBron guy. He's still doing stuff.
Yeah. Anthony Davis also still doing stuff. I mean, was playing at an MVP level earlier this season. With the Lakers, it's always, can LeBron and AD stay healthy? If they can, they're going to have a real shot to pull off this upset. I know in terms of odds, like this is one of the most evenly matched series, and maybe we are all overrating the Lakers a little bit, but I think you have to, with them in particular, you just have to throw out their record, have to throw out their seed, like what they were before the trade deadline and what they are after are two completely different teams. So it makes it tough to project and to analyze how they match up with Memphis. You brought up Brandon Clark is out for Memphis. Steven Adams sounds like he's going to be out for Memphis. So that lack of front court depth, Jaren Jackson versus Anthony Davis is going to be fun, like a nice unicorn battle. But if Jaren Jackson gets in foul trouble, which has affected him over the years, not having him in there with LeBron driving at the rim or to anyone to stop AD, like that really could swing the series in the Lakers' favor. So, part of me thinks we're all like underrating both the Kings and the Grizzlies a little bit. Like I think everyone's already looking ahead and like, ooh, we could get LeBron versus Steph in the second round. We could have both of these upsets. And I feel like we're probably going to get at least one of the higher seeds moving on. And it just always happens that way, right? Like we always project out. We're like, ooh, this series, this Eastern Conference Finals is going to be really fun. And then it never actually happens.
So as of 6:42 on Friday, April 14th, what is Bryan Toporek's prediction for the NBA Finals?
Oh man, it's so tough. It's really like,
I say that with the caveat that you might change your mind at midnight.
Yeah,
I understand
right. Like
that.
Whoever's healthiest in a month, talk to me then. Like if James Harden is holding up in a month, we're gonna have a much better idea of the Sixers' chances than if he is hobbling around like he was in that Bulls game a couple weeks ago. So, if I absolutely had to pick right now, I lean Milwaukee, Phoenix, Milwaukee taking it. We get a fun rematch though of a couple of years ago, and man, Giannis versus KD in the finals will be awesome. So I think no matter what, this is going to be a really, really good playoffs. We've got a couple of very realistic potential early round upsets. The second round, if the chalky teams outside of whatever's happening in the 2, 3, 6, 7 bracket in the West, but if we get Bucks, Cavs, Sixers, Celtics, and Nuggets, Suns in the second round, that could be all-time great. So I'm just excited, and I would urge Sixers fans in particular, they could have a lot of changes coming in the next couple months. So like, this might be the last time we get to, regardless of what happens, this will be the last time we get to enjoy this particular team. But if this team could look a lot different 6 months from now. So, embrace them, enjoy them while you can.
Here's my crazy prediction for you.
All right.
I'll give it to you while you're on so you can react to it, either rip me or,
okay.
Wish me good luck. First of all, I think the finals are Milwaukee as well, but I think it's the Warriors. Maybe I'm a hater. I just have this vision of one of the Suns guys getting injured and it dooming their entire run. I don't know if it's KD, Chris Paul, Booker, but I feel like one of those guys goes down. I'm sorry, but TJ Warren is not saving you,
Yeah.
And so I feel like the Warriors, they're getting Wiggins back at the right time. I think by the time they get let's say it is the Lakers or Memphis in the second round, and then Phoenix and Wiggins is going to be Wiggins again. And I think that is a huge part for the Warriors. My other side of prediction is Sixers beat the Celtics in 7 games.
Let's go. We love
but they lose to the Bucks in 5.
I'll take it as long
because
as because get to the conference finals. That's cool.
Here's my theory. I think Joe Mazzulla, the bright lights might get him. And I just don't know how healthy Jaylen Brown is going to be by the time they get to the second round. And I think that if the Sixers can give me 4 really good games, they can. Obviously, they're going to win in 7. All you need is 4 to win in 7. And I think by the time they get through Boston, they'll be so emotionally spent that Giannis is just going to be licking his lips and be like, all right, let's have some fun. They're just going to run over James Harden in like game 4 and like give him a concussion and knock him out of the game or something.
Yeah, I could see that. I will say about Sixers Celtics, because I think it is going to happen. we all have mental baggage with the Celtics, just given what the history between the two franchises, especially the last 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
Embiid's the only Sixer who's been here through all of it.
That's
none
true.
of these guys, James Harden does not have mental baggage about the Celtics. Like
you're Doc Rivers' best friend right now. Rivers has been saying this for the last 24 hours.
I think it's fair though. Like PJ Tucker doesn't care about this. Anthony Melton doesn't care about this. Tyrese Maxey doesn't care about this. Tobias Harris, I guess he was here for 2020, so maybe he cares a little bit. But like, it is a fresh new team, so I understand the anxiety from the fans' perspective, especially how long Boston has tormented the Sixers, but hopefully this will be the year that they break through.
He's Bryan Toporek. Follow him on Twitter at @Toporek. Download, like, subscribe, give the 5-star review to the NBA podcast. Check out all of Bryan's work in Liberty Ballers and Forbes Sports, because you know that Bryan is going to be reacting after every Sixers game this postseason. Bryan, always appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy the weekend, and I'm sure we'll talk next week.
Sounds good. Anytime, Josh. Thank you.
Josh Hennig here on GameNight 97.3 ESPN, where I just gave away my prediction for the playoffs. I'm telling you, I think the Sixers can beat the Celtics, but I think the counterweight to beating the Celtics, you vanquish the villain, you beat him down, and it's like playing a video game. You only have half life left when you get the big bad guy in the final round. You spend all of your energy, you spend all of your resources to beat the villain in the second round to get to the conference finals. And there's Giannis saying, "Hey guys, how you doing?" And you're just like, you put your head down and you're thinking, how are we gonna do this? I got half life left on my energy bar. I don't know if my character is gonna have enough umph left. I mean, is there any extra cheat codes I could use in this? No. All right. Because then the question is, you beat the Celtics, you get to the conference finals, then what happens this offseason? We'll check in what you guys have to say on the other side. Don't forget, coming up here in about 7 minutes from now, your final opportunity to qualify for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest tonight at 7 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN. The play-in tournament has 2 more games to decide the 8th seed tonight.
Tonight on ESPN Radio. It's a win or go home. Play-in doubleheader. First in Miami, the Heat face the Chicago Bulls. Then at Minneapolis, it's the T-Wolves and Oklahoma City Thunder.
One night, 2 games. It's win or go home.
The Heat and Bulls, followed by the T-Wolves and Thunder. Presented by Indeed. Coverage begins tonight at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Listen to the NBA playoffs exclusively on 97.3 ESPN.
Hey, take me out of my old car. Get me out of this heat. Approve my credit and cut me some slack. I need a dealer that's watching my back. I gotta make sure it's a great deal. All I have down is my trade. 'Cause I need a great deal on a brand new car.
Stuck in a loan or lease? Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you roll lease. With 0 down and 2.9% financing for 48 months or no payments for 90 days. On every 2023 Kia Forte and Soul in stock, Kia Niro EV wins only $299 per month lease with 0 due at signing. So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Kia and drive home in a brand new Kia with peace of mind. Matt Blatt Kia's exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credits, not all will qualify. 2778 per thousand finance. Go to mattblattkia.com for complete details or call 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Expires 4/30/23.
Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Ray Magliozzi here for eBay Motors. So you ordered a new air filter for your car. You try to install it, but it doesn't fit. So you take a little bit off the sides. What, still doesn't fit? Well, you could try to sit on it. Or get it right the first time with eBay Guaranteed Fit. When you see the check, you know that part's going to fit. Air filters, brakes, headlights, over 122 million parts. Get the right parts at the right prices. eBay Motors, let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
The end of tax season is almost here. Haven't filed? Don't sweat it. You can still beat the buzzer and the crowds by making an appointment at Jackson Hewitt today. They call them tax pros for a reason. They will get you every credit and deduction you deserve, and the accuracy of your return is guaranteed for life. Go to Jackson Hewitt to get filed or get an extension before the deadline. You can still win tax season. Just look to Jackson Hewitt for the assist.
Homeowners trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Business owners trust Jenkins, too, for light commercial services. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Call Jenkins. One call does it all. For new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing, and drain cleaning services. Call now and learn about rebates through the HVAC Energy Efficiency Program, brought to you by South Jersey Gas. Call 609-641-6262 or visit jenkinsandsons.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Yes, don't forget Game Night on 97.3 ESPN being brought to you by Jenkins and Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, the plumbing guy. Just call 609-641-6440 for new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, drain cleaning services, leak repairs, and more. Jenkins does it all. Call 649-641-6440 online at jenkinsandsons.com. A couple things before I get out of here. You know, the Phillies, they've lost 3 straight games, and I know that optically it's a bad look for a lot of people. But again, I just want to remind people, this team did not start out great last year. They all were struggling last year. And you know what? Maybe this team is just not fully out of spring training mode. So maybe that's something to do with it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like there's an end all be all for these things. By the way, the NBA just announced their awards finalists. So here are your awards finalists. Now, MVP is the 3 guys we expected. It's Giannis, it's Embiid, it's Jokic. No surprise there. What I do think is interesting about these awards is the guy, so apparently they have a clutch player of the year award in the finals for Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, and De'Aaron Fox. Jimmy Butler and DeMar DeRozan are playing tonight, coming up in about 10 minutes is tip-off. I mean, doesn't it feel like that the guy who wins the game tonight, if he doesn't win the award, it feels that's like a really poor award. Like, the timing of this is actually like not that great, honestly. The other awards that are interesting, Sixth Man of the Year is Malcolm Brogdon, Bobby Portis, and Emmanuel Quickly, as Bryan Toporek was mentioning. Quickly might win the Sixth Man of the Year. Your Coach of the Year candidates: Mike Brown, Sacramento; Mark Deneau in OKC; Joe Mazzulla with the Celtics. And remember that the guy who usually wins Coach of the Year historically does not win the NBA championship. All right. You go back through guys who win NBA Coach of the Year most years, they're not winning championships those years. So maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You know, Monty Williams won it last year. They didn't get to the NBA Finals. Tom Thibodeau won it in 2021. Nope. Nick Nurse, he won the award the year after they won the NBA championship. Budenholzer won it the year before they won the NBA championship. Dwayne Casey won the award and got fired. Mike D'Antoni didn't get to the NBA Finals. The last guy to win a champ or at least get to the NBA Finals was Steve Kerr. That's the year they lost to LeBron in the finals. Budenholzer with the Hawks. They got bumped. The last guy to win a championship and win Coach of the Year was Greg Popovich. So congratulations. The likelihood is that the Kings, the Celtics, and OKC will not reach the NBA Finals. Maybe that's the hidden good news for the Philadelphia 76ers, who play tomorrow at 1 p.m. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN. Play-in tournament is tonight. Heat and Bulls, followed by OKC and Minnesota. But coming up right now, your final opportunity this week to qualify for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest. That sounder means caller number 7 at 609-573-3776. Caller number 7, you are qualified for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest thanks to Philly Sports Trips, where one lucky winner, you and 3 friends, get to go to either the Jets, Giants, or Washington road game this season. 609-573-3776. Caller 7, you are in for the Eagles Pick Your Trip contest. You must be present at Maynard's in Margate the day of the NFL draft. Sports Bench Mike Gill is broadcasting live from 2 to 6 p.m. Call now, 609-573-3776. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Saturday morning in the locker room with Billy Schwein. Mike Carlin joins me in the studio. We will preview the Sixers Saturday 1 p.m. tip-off against the Brooklyn Nets in the first round of the NBA playoffs. The sportsbook consigliere Dave Sherapan checks in from Las Vegas with the latest odds on the Sixers and the NBA playoffs. We will examine the Phillies' slow start in April, Eagles talk, and more. It's the locker room with Billy Schwein, Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon on 97.3 ESPN and the mobile app.